Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire, and this week I am going to show you something totally different and new that you've never seen from me before. You've never seen from me before using the stencil and mask designs directly onto a mixed media piece of artwork to add a pattern to a big flat area of black gesso. So this is kind of a result of questions that people have asked me about these. They have said, oh my goodness, these designs are so beautiful, and if you use them on paper that you tear up, you don't get the full benefit of the design. How else can I use them to get the full benefit of the design in my work? Well, if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out. So many of you have asked what other applications there are for my new line of Gustav Klimt inspired stencils and masks with JOGGLES.com. These are the latest designs, the 9x12 second set of Klimt inspired stencils and masks. And typically I use them on the gel plate, but people have asked me what other applications would I use these stencils for, especially if I'm going to rip up all that paper that I make on the gel plate. How could they appreciate the entire design pattern? So I'm bringing back my Hawaiian girl from the Fashion Plate Portraits class that I taught in Sedona this fall in person. I have been sort of simmering and sleeping on how to handle her completion. I've collaged all the elements up in the top except for the bird. Slide this down so you can see it. So I've collaged all these elements of her headpiece except for the bird and his branch, but everything else is collaged, and I'm really super happy with how the fern came out, and some of these swooping flowers with the leaf print on the right hand side. So the bottom is nice and restful with all this black to sort of offset that busy top colorful part. So I hesitate to make this really any more busy. But I wanted to see about incorporating some of this pattern of my new stencil mask. This is a mask into her hair. Now, I'm going to give it a try, but I'm going to let you know that the beautiful thing about experimenting is that sometimes things are amazing and they work wonderfully, but the downside sometimes is things don't turn out how you expect or what you think you're going to like. But the beautiful part about this piece is that her hair is done with black gesso, and black gesso is completely and totally opaque. So that means if I don't like the treatment that I put in her hair with the mask, I can always go back over it with black gesso and bring it right back to this and try another experiment or a technique. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. So the tool that I'm using is my Ranger Mini Ink Blending Tool. It is a little wooden dabber that you can use to dab the paint, and with a Velcro attaches to it a domed foam refill. And the domed foam allows me to sort of press around all edges, and because it goes off into the dome, I don't get a circular, like a sharp edge circle. I can get a sort of a softer impression as I roll it around and dab the color through it. I should have a more even, softer impression with the domed foam. And that domed foam refill fits the Mini Ink Blending Tool. You can wash these out as well and reuse them, which I do a lot. So a few refills, if you take good care of them, will go a long way. And the link for these tools is going to be below the video. Okay, so the next thing that I'm using is, I love to use a gel plate as a palette. This is a pristine one that I have never used. It's a 6-inch round, and I'm going to use that as a palette. I'm going to put out some burnt sienna, golden fluid acrylic, and I'm going to dip my blender in it, and that will be where we'll begin. So I thought about adding some copper to the brown and maybe giving it sort of a golden metallic. I'm not sure if that would be overwhelming to the top, but you know what? I think we could add a little bit. So here's the iridescent copper fine. It's a nice complementary color to the burnt sienna because they're sort of warm golden browns. Also, the burnt sienna is semi-translucent, so you can see the tick marks on the front of the container through it, the little black crosshatch marks. And the ones on the copper, when you turn it to the light a little bit, you generally don't see them. There you go. So Golden considers all of the metallics to be opaque colors. So mixing a little bit of copper with the burnt sienna will give it a little bit more of an opaque quality, which will go over the black better. But I don't want it to be super duper bright, so I'm just going to put a little bit in there, and then I'm going to blend it together and see what we have. So now, and with this foam insert, you usually need a lot more paint than you think because it gets absorbed into the little foam thing. So let's make some more. And let's go a little darker. Okay, so the idea is to lay the mask over the hair and to dab through the mask just in the hair area. And of course, I don't have to do it everywhere. I can do it as accents in some places and not others. So I'm going to start with this side right here, and I'm going to line this up in a way that I like, and I'm going to hold it. You could also tape it with painter's tape, but I'm just going to live on the edge and hold it and hope that it doesn't shift. So I'm going to dab through, and you have to be careful because parts of the mask are die cut into spirals and they're going to lift because the paint's a little sticky, and you want to be careful not to go onto her face. Again, you could mask that off with painter's tape if you weren't confident that you wouldn't go over it, because if you do get it onto the paper ephemera background, there's not much you can do to fix that, except for lift it up real quick and wipe it with a wet paper towel that you would have on hand. So I'm just being really careful to stay in the black hair areas. And I'm going to get a little more paint and shift where I'm holding. Now, I do intend to add a lei flowers around her neck, but I figured I might as well address the pattern that I had hoped to put in the hair first before I put the lei flowers on top. It's just much easier to work from back to front. So now we can hang on and lift up, and that pattern is kind of fun in her hair. It is kind of fun and interesting. So let's come down and continue it into the bottom area here. And here we're giving her some really, I think dabbing it a little slow, rolling it seems to work a little better with the edges of the pattern. There we go. That's giving me a little bit more definition, just slowly rolling it. So like down here, rather than dabbing up and down and having the mask grab and lift, let's just press and roll. So that's looking really interesting in her hair, I think. So I'm going to come over here, I think, and add some more. I want to, or actually, let's finish off the bottom here. Let's go with this. And I'm going to have to mix up some more paint. I like the copper in there. Could add a little more. There's nothing that says that the part here has to be the same color as everywhere else. If you add a little more copper and deviate a little bit, I think that's fine. It's a little more interesting that way. So, rolling it. Soften the edges of that. And let's bring that over here. So pressing and rolling, trying to even out the edges of your paint application so that you don't have a lot around the corners. Well, there's no corners in a circle, but around the edge of the circle. So I'm going around this gold leaf that I applied. I really like how that looks. I'm not going to do it complete. I like the way that there's some black still. So let's, this transition isn't very soft, so I'm going to sort of soften that a little bit. That's better. And then I'm going to mix up a little bit more. And let's put, I'll put my favorite part down here. Well, not my, let's see. Yeah, and line that up here so I can continue the pattern. And it's going to be important that I hold that really well. I'm going to have to slide this up so you can see it. Okay, so it's going to be important that I hold this down really sturdy because it's hanging off the edge of the table. That's tricky. Okay, so I picked this particular mask because I thought that it also lent itself sort of to the curls and swirls in her hair. Okay, so there's a little more, and I think I want to add a spiral right here. Yeah, so this is my spiral. Yeah, I love that there. And then I'm going to bring it up very carefully into here and try to do just a little and not too much to compete with those flowers. So maybe adding just a little in here. That's looking really good. I want to put one of these circles right here. Whoops, we shifted. Let's see, line that up. And a little bit more on the lower right, I think. That looks really good. I like how that one circle I did kind of went out into the swirl of her hair. Let's see if we can repeat that effect here. Sort of. Okay, and I need to do a little bit more up in here. How about this line with the little dots along the side of it? And now I did get a little on her face. So before that dries, I'm going to get my wet paper towel. Now I have varnished this face. So you see this chalk pastel color in the face is sealed with varnish, and I will always do that before I start messing around with other things so that I can, as long as the paint is wet, I can get it off, because right now I'm working on the surface of the varnish and not the surface of the pastel underneath. So I really like that. I like the way that I left this middle area sort of also black, and I'm going to address the I think putting a few more things like a lei around her neck to go with these leaves that I left open. Now there's some paint on those that's, there we go. Ooh, sorry for the camera shaking. I'll get that off. So you see that as long as the paint's a little bit wet, that varnish coat is going to release it, because we're not working on uncoated paper here. So, and then the other thing you can do is come back in here and add some embellishing to reinforce the pattern if you wanted to, with some Posca pens or some jelly pens. I don't want to get too fancy in her hair because she has a lot going on in the top of her head. So I'm going to stick with this, but I think this is really adding sort of something to the tropical pattern without being too bold. So this is my 20 by 24 hula portrait, inspired by my trip to Hawaii to visit my sister last May and begun in the Fashion Plate Portraits workshop in Sedona, Arizona this fall. The Fashion Plate Portraits Workshop is also available online, and it begins in February, and registration opens this month. If you're interested in that, you want to sign up for my newsletter mailing list, that link is going to be in your upper right-hand corner and also down below the video. Get on my mailing list and you will get the information to register online for the Fashion Plate Portraits Workshop, learning how to do something similar to this. And I hope that you found it interesting and helpful as another way that you could use my new collection of Gustav Klimt inspired stencil and mask designs for joggles.com. As always, thank you for being here and happy Friday. And I wanted to let you know that this is the Gustav Klimt 2 collection. There's also a Gustav Klimt 1 collection with 10 additional stencils and masks from the original design. And the links to both of those collections, in case you cannot get enough Klimt, those links are down below for my stencil and mask designs with joggles.com. Thanks again for being here. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. Patreon is what helps me pay the bills. It's what helps me create these YouTube videos, tutorial tidbits for free, and it supports a working artist so that I don't have to get a job at Starbucks. As much as I would love all that coffee, I don't think they would love having me as an employee. So yeah, patreon.com/Elizabeth St. Hilaire. It is a month-to-month subscription. You can cancel at any time, but I feel like I have enough content to keep you busy for a long time. But if your budget changes or your situation changes, it is a month-to-month subscription, and you can cancel at any time, and they bill you on the first of every month. So if you get billed on the first of the month, wait till the last day of the month to cancel your subscription. Or just stay. We want you to stay.